Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little black subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that black subscribe button. Really does help our audience grow, really does help our channel grow, really does help and mean more than you could possibly know. So go ahead, hit that little black subscribe button. Also, thank you to our presenting sponsor, Betfred Sportsbook and the Betfred Sportsbook app. Bet 50 on any game, get $250 in free bets. Thank you again to Betfred. Thank you again to you. Now, here's the video that you came here for. It doesn't really change the fact that Tyler Van Dyke was linked to Alabama for a pretty straightforward reason. It's that we don't really know what Alabama's quarterback situation is going into fall camp. 4 guys competing for the job, 2 true freshmen who just enrolled this spring, and then also Jalen Milroe, who started a game or 2 when Bryce Young got hurt last year, and Ty Simpson, a 5-star redshirt freshman who didn't play significant snaps a year ago. And so while the Tyler Van Dyke element of the story isn't true, it doesn't change the fact that Alabama is very much searching for its next quarterback. And unlike in previous years, the next guy does not appear to be obviously in line like it was when Mac Jones left and Bryce Young was ready to take the job 2 years ago. And so I bring it up because on Saturday, Alabama had its A-Day spring game. And a couple very interesting things happened as it pertained to this specific topic. One, the quarterbacks did not look very good. And 2, Nick Saban had some very interesting comments when it came to the quarterback position and the transfer portal. So let's break it all down right now. Now, like I said, 2 quarterbacks really vying for the spot. I don't think either freshman is going to be a significant contributor this year. But Jalen Milroe and Ty Simpson were kind of the stars of the show on Saturday. What everybody came out to Bryant-Denny Stadium to see, Alabama actually had more people at their spring game than Colorado did. Not really a surprise, considering Alabama's awesome, and they've been awesome since Nick Saban took over the job. But Jalen Milroe and Ty Simpson were the stars and the focal point of the spring game, and it did not go very well. Here are the final stats from that spring game. Jalen Milroe, 19 of 37, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Ty Simpson, 12 of 26 for 155 yards. I believe it was 1 touchdown, 1 interception for him. And so I bring it up because, listen, there were a number of factors. 1, you're playing against really good competition. 2, I talked to some buddies that were there. They told me, there's some drop passes here, backup offensive line, late in the game, some tip balls, whatever. So it's not to say that it was like the worst thing that has ever happened and the worst display of football that has ever happened in the history of the sport. At the same time, though, Nick Saban was asked about transfer quarterbacks after the A-Day game, the spring game, and gave some very interesting answers and some very interesting quotes about the situation that I want to discuss now, because I think it's worth diving into and I think it's worth dissecting what Nick Saban said. So the question specifically came from a reporter about how much easier it is to potentially break in a quarterback who has already been in the program versus all these other schools that are now bringing in transfer quarterbacks, right? So you think across college football, Ole Miss has 2 new transfer quarterbacks in the system. Whatever. I can't think of anybody else off the top of my head. Florida's got a couple transfers. Whatever. Kentucky obviously has Devin Leary transfer from NC State. So Nick Saban's asked about the difference between a guy that's already been in the system versus a guy that is being a transfer. And here is what Nick Saban had to say. Listen closely, because I think it's very interesting. He said, I think the people that have been in the program obviously have an advantage to some degree. They know the system. They've had a lot of reps in the system. But I also think everybody has to ask themselves, at whatever position you play, are you playing winning football at that position? And can you play winning football at that position? And I think that's the better question to answer. Who can do that best? In other words, who can play winning football? And those are evaluations that we have to make as coaches at every position. We've tried to build this program with guys that we recruit and people in the program, but we've had a few guys that have come in and made real impacts on this team. And if we see an opportunity to do that, we're always looking for an opportunity to make our team better. That was the quote. And let me just say this. On the one hand, could mean absolutely positively nothing. Hey, we're always looking to get better at every single position. Or if you have followed Nick Saban for the last 15 years and you know that he takes every media opportunity to talk about, to send a message and talk about his team and deliver a message to his team through the media, you could interpret those quotes a little bit different. Now, in terms of if you don't want to be overreactionary person, hot take guy, and I don't think I'm a hot take guy, I think I just try to dig deep and think about it. You could look at those quotes and just say, he's sending a message to everyone on his team. He specifically did not mention the quarterback position. He said everybody at whatever position you play has to ask yourself, are you playing winning football at that position? So you could absolutely take that quote, interpret that quote, and say, that could be a message to the left guard. That could be a message to the strong side safety. That could be a message to the middle linebacker. That could be a message to whomever. It doesn't necessarily have to be a message to the quarterback. And I don't know that I necessarily would disagree with that. I think that's any program in college football, college basketball this time of year. Listen, we love you. We recruited you. We went into your home. We want to see you succeed. This was the vision that we laid out for you. But if you're not willing to put in the work, there's always somebody that's willing to come in and take your job. So if that's how you interpret the message, I'm not here to tell you that you're wrong, criticize you, anything like that. But at the same time, I actually take it a little bit differently. Let me explain why. Because, and we have talked about this a lot on this show before, if you have followed Nick Saban's career to any degree since he got the Alabama job and even before then, I would argue that there isn't a coach in sports, a coach in any sport anywhere, that is better than sending a message to his team, and sometimes it's specific players, sometimes it's whatever, than Nick Saban. And so when I look at that message, remember, he wasn't asked about every position, plugging in players from the portal versus players in your program. He was asked specifically about the quarterbacks. And while he gave the broad 30,000, anybody can be replaced speech, I think there's something to Alabama might be shopping for quarterbacks in the spring. And the reasons why are pretty simple. One, quarterbacks weren't that good. Like, if Jalen Milroe goes 24 of 28 for 374 yards and 2 touchdowns and no interceptions, then Nick Saban probably answers that question differently. Same if it was Ty Simpson, same if it was one of the freshmen. Two, and I think this part is important to me. If, again, remember what the question was. Players from the portal versus players in the program. If Nick Saban was totally 100% happy with the play of his quarterbacks, don't you think there is a way that he can say, hey, everybody's got to play winning football, while also letting the world know that he's happy with the quarterback position? I'm going to use Nick Saban's own quotes to do exactly that. He said, this is really what he said. He said, everybody has to ask themselves, at whatever position you play, are you playing winning football at that position? So Nick Saban could have easily said, listen, you know our mantra here in Tuscaloosa. Are you playing winning football at any position, whatever you are? Are you playing winning football? And can you play winning football at that position? And then he could have continued with something like, you know, the quarterbacks weren't great today, but we have the highest level of confidence that the guys that we have in this locker room can play winning football at the highest level. And we believe in the guys in this locker room. They need to be better than today, but we know that they can do that. He didn't do that. He didn't do that. And again, dig deeper into these quotes. First off, he said, I think the people in the program have an advantage to some degree. In other words, yeah, you got a little bit of an advantage, but it doesn't mean that we can't go out there and replace you if you're not good enough. Two, he could have said something that took the heat off the quarterback room, and he didn't. He could have said, we need to play championship football at every position. Quarterbacks weren't the best today, but I feel great about them going into the spring, into the summer, and I know they're going to come out into fall camp ready to go. He did not say that. And finally, here is my other thought about this whole situation. Again, remember, he was asked about the quarterback position. Again, remember, Nick Saban ain't dumb, and he knows that no matter what he says is going to be a headline. And he also knows that the quarterback position is the biggest headline going into the summer. And so, especially in the portal era where guys can just get up and leave, if he was totally happy with this, he would have said something to that effect, knowing that it's going to linger. He would have said something about, can't wait to see how they develop over the course of the spring and summer. I think both are good enough to start for us today, and we'll figure out who number one is going into. There's a million ways he could have delivered it. And I think the fact that he knows that this is the biggest story, this is the biggest headline, no matter what he says, we're going to overanalyze it. He would have handled it different if he truly believed that the right quarterback was definitively in that room. Now, does it mean Alabama's taking a quarterback? No matter what, I don't believe that. I think they're going to look at their options. They're going to see what enters the portal. They're going to see maybe, I'm not accusing them of anything, but we all know a lot of times guys can be coerced to go into the portal. Now, it's worth noting, in the spring, players in the SEC cannot transfer to other spots. So that's important because a backup, say Brock Vandagriff at Georgia, he can't just enter the portal and go to Alabama or enter the portal and go to Auburn. Whoever, if there's an elite backup at Tennessee or Texas A&M, Max Johnson can't just go into the portal at Texas A&M and go to Alabama tomorrow. So it's interesting. LSU, by the way, has a couple starting caliber quarterbacks as well. So it's interesting to think about. And it's interesting for me because a lot of different things can happen. I don't think they necessarily have their eyes on one guy, but I think they're going to see what enters that portal. And I think they're going to see, can we bring in somebody that can compete or somebody that's better? Doesn't mean they will, but Nick Saban didn't exactly shoot down the rumor that they might be shopping around to try. So it's something to keep an eye on. It is very interesting, but Nick Saban, not exactly quieting the rumors that Alabama could be in the market for another quarterback this spring.